What if culture wasn't just a value on a wall, but the system that holds everything together? So, welcome back to Voices of Impact, the space where we explore leadership beyond surface level growth and into the identities, systems, and foundations that create lasting impact. So, I'm genuinely excited to welcome Hassan Pardawalla for a conversation grounded in something we both deeply value: culture meets systems, right? The foundation of scalable, resilient companies. Hassan is a culture curious, framework loving, Murphy's Law surviving human who blends sharp business strategy with real world humor. Known for turning complex he brings a fresh and practical lens to how culture shapes us, how structure protects us, and how chaos inevitably tests us. With a lived experience across multiple countries, industries, and roles, Hassan works with business owners as an operational teacher, teaches MBA candidates how to implement business fundamentals, mentors entrepreneurs, and serves his community as a volunteer and board member. His life and work are anchored in curiosity, multiculturalism, diverse perspectives, community grit, adaptability, and so more, right? And yes, of course, fun. So, what makes this conversation especially aligned is what we both stand for. Culture is not accidental, it's really designed. So, he challenges leaders to move beyond, we'll figure it out, to intentional design, where culture and systems work together instead of against each other. So, in this episode, we explore what it truly takes to build companies that don't just grow, but endure. So, welcome. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here today and talk about culture and systems and frameworks and Murphy's Law.
Likewise. So glad to have you on the show. So, yeah, your career path is described as nonlinear, so I can relate to that, and driven by curiosity and multiculturalism. So, how has that shaped the way you diagnose culture and systems and organizations?
So the very first team I built was actually university to make a bioreactor to grow cells, right? So that was one of the first things I did. And the entire team I had was just people who I studied with, right? So I was very first focus on getting people from a different culture, different background to work with me in a team to deliver a project. And then after that, I just went into the oil and gas industry. I moved to field operations in Pakistan. Then I moved to Saudi Arabia. Then end up in Iran. Then I went back to Pakistan to do marketing. And then everywhere I went, I always met people from different backgrounds, different countries. And what always excited me the most was learning their stories. And what happened is through learning the stories, you understand that when people say no, it's just a conversation down. But people saying yes,
Yeah,
it gets people excited. It gets people who want to talk to you more. And then
right.
after that experience of just going to a new place and absorbing all the information I could get, it really makes you question your own value systems and what you truly believe in. And I think that's what it comes down to because I went from from being a marketing manager, going into clients, convincing them selling value to becoming an HR manager where the focus was, why do you want to quit today? What's wrong? Like, how
Right.
is that? How can I help you continue on your growth trajectory? So all of these things kind of naturally occurred. And because I went then from HR to supply chain, then everything was more systems driven. Because then this is where the culture really kicked in the most was understanding who is running the process, what is the person doing on a daily basis, and how are you helping him out? And I think because of that openness to listen to people from all the way from Australia to Venezuela, right? Having different people coming in as engineers with PhDs and having people who just graduated from high school, picked up a hammer and were on the rig sites. So I think
Right.
having such a different level of people coming in and religious beliefs in the way they saw the world and their own values of family is more important than anything else.
Right.
And that really kind of changed the way when I go in, because now when I go into places, the first thing I do is like an anthropologist is observe for 3 months.
Yeah.
Because you got to observe what people are doing. How are they walking into the door? Are they taking the left foot or the right foot? Are they bringing in mugs of coffee? Are they
Right.
even talking to people or laughing? And I think that's what really drives me is
Nice.
work should be fun, regardless what people say. You should be caring about the people you're working with. And I think that's where kind of diagnose is my culture aspect is, well, how are people showing up every day? what are they enjoying, how they're communicating across, and
Yeah.
what systems are in place to encourage that culture building, rather than having a system take away from that
Right.
culture.
Right. Yeah. I love how you talked about like people first and culture. And I can relate because I was also a marketing manager, so very similar, story and arc. And I just love, and when you say networking, people take it as like, oh, I'm supposed to ask something. But when I say as networking, it's just get to know someone, like a coffee chat. And I've had many people, I have had many times that I did that from Global, right? And even this podcast, just kind of learning from you, learning from all these guests. It's a different perspective, learning your story, learning your why. So that's what makes it more fun, like adding that curiosity and adding value. So absolutely. And that's what brings the culture, right? You learn everyone's stories and you realize like, we're very similar or we're different in this way, or how can we help each other out? Right. So all of that's just, it's amazing, right? It's more fun. It's more cultural driven. So amazing. Awesome. So humor, grit, and adaptability are themes in your leadership. So how do those show up when you're working with founders under pressure, though?
Under pressure, it's always humor. Like the best way for someone to let go of the anger and to kind of look at something differently is to make them laugh.
Right.
And for me, it's not that you can just switch on one day. It has to be consistently done throughout. So with grit, for adaptability and humor, is not just showing up and saying, "Hey, I'm fun," but it's the small actions you do on a daily basis. Grit is something that when you talk across and you read all the books by Angela Duckworth on her book, and then you talk to different people, the persistence is that you don't want to give up, that you want to find a solution. And oftentimes people, when they're looking at finding a solution, they don't ask the right questions or they don't go to different places. They focus internally, focus on themselves. And for me, grit was, if I want a solution, where is the solution? Who do I talk to? Where do I go for that solution? But then also failing once doesn't mean you don't try it again. So when I talk
Yeah.
to my students and talk to people, it's not about failure. It's about learning from your failures. And oftentimes we don't fail, we pivot. So then also
Right.
looking at grit is you keep going forward, you fall down, you get back up. You fall down, you get back up. But every single time you fall down should be for different reasons, not for the repeated mistakes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the consistency, right? That you keep improving and you see how to improve. And when it comes to human adaptability, well, adaptability, everyone has a life outside of work. And oftentimes we don't realize that. And we
Mhm.
fail to understand that aspect. So when it comes to adaptability is understanding when should meetings be set up? Who are the people you're working with? I used to work with people who had young kids, right? Early in my career, a lot of people getting married had young kids. And for me, having them stay around till 8 p.m. didn't make sense. Having a meeting push forward or rechanging meeting schedule to best fit their timings for them to go pick up their kids is the adaptability aspect of it.
Right.
Is taking new information, knowing that I have imperfect information and willing to adapt to someone else's data and to adapt to someone else's idea. And I think
Mhm.
this is where people forget. Adaptability is not just, oh, I'll fit in, but what do I need to do to fit in? How can I
Yeah.
make other people more comfortable so
Right.
that way they come in, they show up when they need to show up? And those are a couple of points there. When it comes to humor, I think this for me is just inbred. Like I love memes. I love sometimes playing small harmless pranks,
Right.
right? Like getting people laughing because when people are laughing, it reduces the defensive. It makes them more open. It gives
Right.
them more ideas. If everyone
Right.
is worried about anger and like, what do we do? Let me put it this way: with Lego, there was this entire paper on Lego and play, Lego experimentation, right? With
Yeah.
ideation as well. If you're having fun, if you're playing, new ideas do come up. And for me, that's
Mhm.
where it comes to the humor, right? But then also making humor is a way for us to laugh and connect and bring people together. Because when you're laughing, other people get interested. They'll
Yeah.
come in. If you're crying, they will walk away.
Right.
And I think it
Right.
goes to that way. So it goes to the grit is when you're struggling, you got to learn how to adapt to new situations, but also be in a hopeful light,
Right.
be positive rather than being negative.
Yes, exactly. It's the energy you bring and the presence that kind of influences and like brings in that culture, right? And like you said, grit, it starts from a mindset because in pressure, they're like, okay, let's just pressure ourselves and get to a solution, but actually like slow down and understand why are we trying to pressure ourselves? What's going on? And then, I mean, with grit, like there are times when, I've gone down and I failed, but I get back up and I look at like back onto the mission, right? Why am I doing this? Especially as entrepreneurs, we have to look at our North Star. And like that's a conversation that I've had with many people that we think it's like, okay, we're so pressured by societal conditions to kind of have these expectations. We have to be like this way, but you don't have to. We're not here to conform. Do it your way, do it aligned, and do what works for you, right? So, like I said, humor too. I've had people had playing games. Even now, we're gonna have a rapid fire at the end. So I think just getting to know each other on a personal level is really important. So absolutely, like I'm totally supporting all of these themes. So it's amazing.
I do want to go back to one of the things you said is conforming. One of the things I realized, like when you work in a business, you expect to conform, but then when you're scaling a business, when you're growing, conforming is really hard, especially if you're a founder, if you're a leader,
Right.
right? Because then conforming means you're following the pattern, which might not always work.
Yeah.
And this is where I kind of tell people, it's like everyone is a black sheep. Everyone has their unique ways, but
Right.
so when you get enough data sets, you get the bell curve, right? You get the normal distribution, right? What are the main properties that every single person has, the number of traits you have? But the non-conforming is, are you willing to challenge the systems in place? Are you willing to question
Exactly.
the cultures?
Right.
And oftentimes, because you're so much into conforming, especially in a large organization, which has
Hmm.
been out for years, for decades, it's really hard to challenge. In a small, medium-sized business, you're challenging the owner, the CEO for a small business, and then people get scared. And I
Right.
think people need to understand, like, if you conform, you lose a lot of chances.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes the risk takers, as you go about it, all the ones that are now on the stock exchange with the billions and the trillions, they never really conformed. They understood risk. They understood like, hey, how do you get stuff done? Then how do you get moving forward? So for me, it's always conforming is great. Don't break the laws. Be a good human, but question, right? You got to question, you got to understand what is happening for you to develop a really good system as well, right? Based on the culture you have.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we're both in marketing, I know where a lot of people like, follow the bro marketing, which I'm not saying is wrong, right? There's no right or wrong, but you want to find what's like, yeah, we talked about what's aligned for you. So for me, a lot of people had told me like, hey, like write content, do this way, do that way. And I just felt like it just wasn't aligned, right? I love connection. I love culture. So I started this podcast. Everyone has their own way. So a message for people who are listening is do it your way. You don't have to follow what the guru's saying on marketing. Like you said, you don't have to conform. I know some people who are in corporate who are shifting are used to that, but as founders, if you really want to be a successful change maker, first of all, you have to define what success is. But if you want to be a trailblazer, you do need to think differently and act differently, right? So that's what makes you really successful. Taking those risks. Sometimes you don't know where those risks go and it will take you, but like you said, curiosity, asking the right questions and experimenting with that is going to get you far. So, absolutely. Going into foundations of scale.
Yep.
So, going back into what we talked about, like those mindset shifts. So, can you share a moment where shifting to a cultural mindset unlocked operational leverage or clarity?
Those are the roles I took as a program director for a startup, which was valorizing food waste. When I came in, everyone was really excited. They were getting new people in, they had these big projects going along.
Yeah.
But then walking in, everyone was happy, right? There was this culture of innovation. There was a culture of excitement that we are changing the world. But even within that culture, what it comes to realize that there was no structure. It was being intentional that we wanted to have this open space that everyone wants to come in and can create, work from home, have different
Mhm.
flexible hours. But then you realize when you have a team of like 50 people, there should be some structure,
Right.
right? Because then people do want to do a lot of things themselves, but they also want to be structured in. So for me, it came down to understanding like, hey, how are the silos being built in? Who is communicating? And especially when you have remote people, working across the globe, it becomes really hard to make sure everyone is finding an appropriate time to have a meeting, finding the best time to have updates, right? Like, what's the best way to do it? And I think with this company, when I came in, it spent me 1 to 2 months just looking at people, what were they doing, how were they interacting, how was information being transferred back and forth, right? How often were the meetings? One thing that I do look at cultural viewpoints, and this has been by far consistently whenever I go to any other company, how long does a meeting last? If the meeting goes above an hour, I check out. If the meeting is 45 minutes, perfect timing. But a lot of times meetings are not utilized properly. And when we talk about frameworks, there's so many frameworks across the globe that you'll have everyone advocating for. And as I tell people, like frameworks are marketing it to yourself. But the
Right.
framework should not be just chosen blindly. It should also fixed or align with the culture. So
Right.
for me, when I came in with this business, I saw what's happening. Then the meetings all of a sudden went from 90 minutes to 45 minutes. Let's keep
Nice.
on track. If
Yeah.
we are going to continue and want to do those riff sessions and create ideation, the question is, does everyone in the room need to be there? Because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes people have other requirements that need to move out. So then it came down to is when we're holding a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
is this person required? What is this person adding value to?
Right.
Has this
Right.
person been asked, like, hey, is this something you want to join as well? Because you
Right.
don't want to end up in a meeting where you're like, I did not even plan for this meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it came to a point like, hey, let's not invite every single person. Let's understand who needs to be with certain meetings. If you have a client showing up and the client has 2 people, you don't want 12 people in the meeting room, right? From the
Right.
company. So there's 2 from the client, maximum 4 from the company itself. So even
Mm-hmm.
like reframing that view on how meetings should be conducted, how communication has happened. Because communication was going between Slack and WhatsApp.
Right.
So then it was like, let's choose one channel for communication. And I think just looking at the culture, still having that fun, having the culture of hanging out together, laughing.
Mm-hmm.
It also evolved on the culture of the meetings, how to get better, efficient meetings going on. Also
Right.
understanding who needs to show up, how does the communication go back and forth between the different departments, which was operations, productions, remote facilities, which was in Ecuador, and understanding with the producers and our supply chain.
Yeah.
So it always came down to like understanding what is good, where are people complaining about, because people love to complain. And I think
Right.
once you understand what they're ranting, the rant was about the unstructured meetings, everything
Yeah.
going longer, them staying way past 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
right? Meetings starting at 2 when they should be at 9. So it
Right.
had to be that structured in, like, this is what we're going to stick to, but you have the freedom and the flexibility of dialing in or being in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what ended up with this entire thing, understanding the culture, was a systematic way how people committed to help others when they were struggling. Finger pointing drastically reduced, and you got ownership on the entire process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love how you just integrated that balance because a lot of people, it's like, or like, they have the culture or the systems, but it's not the and. And that's a struggle a lot of people are having right now. And they're just like, how can you have the and? And it's really back to what you said is aligning with the culture, what your people want and what they say. And then also the values, right? You value flexibility, then you have to have that structure and systems that align with that, right? So similar to what I did with my team, I don't, like you said, I don't do like 45-minute meetings or 90. Like if I need to get on a meeting, we do or we don't, right? It's not like like you have to do it. Everything's highly impactful, right? So where can you add value? Where can we be more efficient with our time? Can we do for operational only, but can we use AI agents to save time, right? So those kind of things are some things that I feel like a lot of people work on 5 hours on one thing, which is not necessary. So using certain tools and softwares. So I think, like you said, having that mindset of I value time, I value energy. So I also told my team to take Mondays off, right? Rest a little more because as women, I think the conversation has been going on is like, hey, I don't have this energy. So knowing what you value, your work values, like your company and your team, and then finding a balance in that. It's great, great. This is amazing. So I love how you talked about that. And going into, so this is a question that I had. So you reference Murphy's Law often.
Yeah,
So how should
consistently.
Yeah, so this is great. How should leaders design assuming things will go wrong?
This is where I go on the culture and the frameworks, right? Like if you know how people are acting daily, because the challenge I always had when I was a young manager, young leader was when I sent an engineer, when someone went to the client's office, what would this say? How would they act? And would
Right.
I get a phone call from the client complaining, right? So there are a couple of instances with me and my manager, we found out that in a couple of engineers where we constantly got feedback from the client saying they don't want this person to ever show up again in the office. And
Hmm.
we're like, oh crap, we can't, this is like what's happening. And then when we got decisions made, because back in the time when we didn't all have cell phones, decision making was trust.
Right.
Like we
Yeah.
trust you to the right thing. And I think this what it comes down to is the culture is the values alignment, but also it's telling us that we care about each other and we will perform the same way when no one else is looking. And that's what the for me it is, right? Like you get that place where whatever decision we make, if it's sitting in different rooms, we all make the same decision. We might use different ways to get there, but the
Right.
same decision, the same way, so that we know we trust each other. And when you get the framework, you understand the communication between teams. You can see where the money and the time is going
Yeah,
within the system framework, right? Like what is the resources required? How much time? What people do we need? What
exactly.
skill sets? So when you know your people, you know what drives them, you know how you can connect with them, then you have an entire system frameworks, how everything is interconnected.
Hmm.
And then when stuff does go wrong, it's easy for you to pinpoint, hey, something happened in supply chain or something happened in market or something happened with service quality, right?
Hmm.
Where in the process is that ownership? How do we get there? What the risk analysis we did before? Because with Murphy's law, it's you can do as much as you can, but it will go wrong. And it also comes from the unknown unknowns. You can never be ready for what happens. And
Right.
like the black swan, it's about data, right? You might have
Yeah.
information which I don't know. And I think
Hmm.
that's what the leaders are like. When you understand your team, you have the systems in place, you know what people are doing, you know where the weak links are or the deficiencies and strengths.
Yeah.
And then something goes wrong, then all you got to do is leverage the people, the culture,
Right.
understanding how do you revamp the systems to stabilize the shock. And leaders, the most I talk to, it is that visionary one, right? Like what is going to happen the next stage? Who would I need to focus on, right? What
Hmm.
could go wrong? And then getting more and more information. Because one thing with risk analysis with Murphy's Law, whatever we create, we create it with our knowledge. And our knowledge is imperfect. Whenever we
Yes.
get more and more data, we're improving on imperfect knowledge, which should improve our risk analysis, our risk tolerance.
Right.
So then what if it does happen? You don't freeze, you just do. You know what's happening. You are expecting something to go wrong, but you know the right places to adjust because you have everything laid out in front of
Right. Exactly. And I love how you just have your systems in place and you clearly articulate it. And yes, it's having that framework, right? So even if something goes wrong, it's about customizing it, adjusting it according to that. So, because I know a lot of businesses might have everything in place, but not a framework. And that is very key, right? So it's like a formula you just kind of plug and play and then adjust it according to what people want. So, absolutely.
What I will
Amazing.
say, a lot of businesses have are processes, right? They know like, hey,
Yeah.
this is the marketing process, this is the sales. So
Right.
everything is processed, everything is compartmentalized. The framework is showing the interconnectivity on how information flows throughout the entire company, right?
Right.
And then once you figure out how the entire framework, like information coming in to output, then all of a sudden you can start building on different layers
Yeah.
and kind of make this massive 3D model, 4D model on like how everything is interconnected. And I
Wow.
think that's where people kind of forget is we have one process of marketing, great. We have one process of operations, great.
Right.
So how are they interconnected? How and is the
Exactly.
silo talk, right?
Yeah.
Initially the silo talk was you get people to talk. But then
Right.
we forget like processes do hand over information and that should be mapped out.
Right.
Because oftentimes that's where the problem that's where everything breaks down and it's communication breakdown.
Right. Yeah. And I love how you said interconnected. Yes. Because I do agree, many business have processes for each, but they don't know how to coordinate if you connect one with the other. So if one breaks down, what happens to the other and everything breaks down. So when you have a system in its place, like you kind of know where to adjust it accordingly. So I love how we talked about this. I think super important for a lot of businesses out there, to know how to balance culture and people and follow your lead with intuition, but also support it with logic, right? So amazing. And I had one question. So, what behavioral red flags signal a leader may not yet be ready for the next stage of growth? What would those like red flags be?
One big red flag is not accepting criticism. If you're a leader and you can't expect criticism or you can't take that information, the critique, and try to figure out how do I improve, that's something that would question. That's a quick question for me, right? Like even for me, I'm constantly listening to people, understanding feedback, but once I say no, I'm not growing anymore,
Right.
right? Again, because it's imperfect. So for me, it's always when a leader comes in saying, I don't need to be coached. I know what I'm doing. Just do what I say. That's when I go like, yeah, this is supposed to be collaborative, especially when you're trying to grow a
Right.
business, right?
Right.
Everyone has their roles, but everyone is also in a Venn diagram. Everyone needs the support.
Right.
Ownership is one, right? So that's the thing. And then accountability, like you as a leader, do you throw people under the bus straight away? Or do
Mhm.
you go like, hey, I will take the brunt while you guys fix it, while you guys do the work? And those are
Right.
a couple of things. So then when you get a leader who goes straight away and starts blaming people,
Yeah.
that's a culture which I want to work because then people will start looking for other work, they become scared. But when
Right.
you're a leader saying, take the risk, I will support you as long as you keep me updated, it's a way different ballgame. Because a lot
Yeah.
of times as a leader, your job is not to do, but to provide the right resources, the right environment for people to succeed.
Right.
And that's where the culture the frameworks come in. And when it comes to Murphy's Law, everyone panics. So as a leader, you got to be calm in the middle of the storm. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things I was looked at when I was younger was watching Band of Brothers, where Captain Winters, he led the entire battalion for the parachutes through the entire World War II. But then he was always a person who was focused more on the team. How do they get improved? How do they develop themselves? Are they getting the
Mhm.
right chances? Are they being looked after? And just because his team was growing, he grew as well. Because oftentimes leaders forget it's not about you growing. If your
Right.
team has grown, you've shown the capacity to train, upskill, reskill people, create systems where everything is repeatable,
Mhm.
you will automatically scale up. You will grow yourself.
Right.
And that's what people gotta remember, right? It's not just me, 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 it's us.
Yeah.
And then miracles happen.
Right. Like how you said, it's not a me, it's a us. Yes. And I'm all about collaboration. And I've come across people who it's like, tell me what to do and team. I'm just like, hey, like I just said this to my own team member right now. Like I was like, yeah, like give me some ideas, right? Provide some ideas and bring in your innovation, right? Like all of that. Cause I think they were actually I think this is a message I have. So instead of like waiting for permission, go for it and own it, right? So take ownership of that. Like, I do agree with the whole criticism. Like, I just love people who give constructive criticism. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. And I've grown tremendously in the past. I think both of us have in our own ways. Any founders have grown in the past, like 5 months, because we keep learning and having these conversations. Like, I'm learning from you, vice versa. So it has to be that learning mindset's number one, or you're just out as a leader. So that's just the number one thing. Like, that's so important. Accountability, absolutely. I can't emphasize, I know there's a lot of accountability circles, which is amazing, but you want to make sure you're holding yourself accountable. And even if your team grows, you're also growing. So I want to emphasize professional growth, of course, but even personally, right? So personal growth is also important as well. So both, because I know one times a lot of leaders, we focus on career, but we forget the other pieces of our life too. So it's all interconnected. Yes. And
I
when,
do want to add one thing when you talk about the growth is with the consistency. It's about redoing it. It's not like it's 10,000 hours to become an expert, but when you
right.
want to make a culture, you have to be intentional, but you have to be consistent. Words, people will
Yes.
listen to, but how you show up every day, the actions you take redefine the culture in ways
Right.
that you storytelling on a podium could ever do.
Right.
So one thing what
Exactly.
I did was always like, it has to be actions and not
Yeah.
just
Yes.
words because
Yes.
people will look at the action and say like the leader is in the exact same way. He is taking in feedback. They are doing new
Yeah.
things. She is getting back up when she falls down. And
Right.
when they see that, that's more than telling them be gritty.
Right. Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It could be done professionally or personally, because for me, it was going cycling every day. So when you
Right.
see people, someone consistently doing activity and getting better at it, they know those skills and that mindset does go across different places,
Right.
different roles. They bring that in because that's the internal value they developed.
Right. I like how you said like emphasizing consistency. This is a huge thing because there are so many people I see that, with business owners, they show up and they're like, yeah, no one liked my post, or I didn't get that sale today, or this didn't work out. And then it just flat off, like they're done. But that's how it's supposed to be. You have to learn from this and understand, it's okay. First of all, it's okay to have that happen. But still showing up and the fact that you're coming here because of your mission, you're serving. At least even if one person sees you on on your platform, or you talk to having one coffee chat can change a lot of things. Doesn't have to be quantity, but it's over the quality, right? So I do agree. I do agree with the consistency piece, but just show up in some way or form every single day. Don't pressure yourself, but at the same time, show up in small ways you can. Whatever that feels aligned to you, whatever energizes you. So, like, you don't have to follow anyone else's, so do what works for you. Again, right? So, exactly. And going into, let's see, what's one belief about leadership or growth you wish founders would release immediately? And I know we talked about a few, but what was one that you would say, like, immediately that they should release?
That they should believe or leave.
So what's one belief that they should release immediately?
Okay, that they're the only one who ever thought about the solution. There's 8 billion more people. Someone else has thought about it. So saying
Yeah,
like, hey, there's no one else in the market who can do this. There's only me who can do it. That belief, you gotta give that one. There's always someone else. There's 8 billion plus people,
hmm,
right? So yes, we all are unique. My mom says I'm special. I'm pretty sure your mom said you're special, but in the overall thing, there's always someone who's done it before. So be open-minded, right? Don't just say like there's no one else who can do this.
exactly. Exactly. And I totally agree with this because everyone, like, yeah, and honestly, you have a unique value. Everyone has a unique value in them, right? And they first need to understand and get clear, super clear on your mission. It comes from your mission, it comes from your values, but what are you really here to do? And even if it sounds similar with those 8 billion people, there's that 1% that's like, you're just unique and you have to figure that out first. And then the rest is about articulating it. But if you are solid in what your unique value is, the rest is super easy. But I feel like people start with the others, just kind of putting themselves out there and take action without knowing your unique value. So everyone is amazing and unique in in any way or shape or form. So please don't think like they did it and I can't, because I still see a lot in those cultures that we talk about. In South Asian culture, I see a lot of that as well. But, you need to know that you're here for a reason. We need your story. We need your experience. So it's very needed in this world, right? So,
One thing I was going to say on this one, and you mentioned the culture again, it goes South Asian, right? Like we only see people when they succeed. You only
yeah,
see a person at one point of time, but you never see the person and how many days or how many times were they depressed, how many times they got said no. I
right.
think what we always struggle is that you look at one point of time, understand and not understanding the bigger picture, meaning there's so many more data points that we don't see, but we
Yeah,
only focus on the successful data point.
right.
And we only hear about stories of people who have been successful, but there are a lot of people who have failed consistently and still have been happy in life. And
Yeah,
I think it goes to point like if how are you developing your value system? But yeah, having founders say like, hey, other people can do it. What is your unique value proposition? That's more important. Saying no one else can do what I do.
right. Exactly. It's a huge mindset shift, especially South Asians. I do agree, like, oh, look at that person, he's successful. And then we base it on that. But, you know, I I come from a family that's all tech, linear path. No one's ever an entrepreneur. So I'm the first one. And it's like, how do you know you'll succeed, Mina? Like everyone's doing it. So the exact same question. I was like, no, I can. I have something others don't, and I will, put myself out there. There's something, I have a mission, right? That mission itself makes me unique, right? So like you said, going into that bigger picture and asking yourself why I'm here. And you have to look into your own strengths, right? There are strengths. And like you said, grit plus resilience, not every person has that. And trust me, when I talk to a lot of people, I do see this. Or if they do have it, they're not leading from it. They're not embodying it. Some people can, like you said, words are one thing, but there are very few people who can act on it and have those acts show, right? A lot of them are, just words, right? So it depends, right? And how, like you said, how they, fail and then get back, only the 1% can. So if you shift your mindset into a positive, like, I'll learn from that 1%, I'll, have them as my mentor, like, it will work, right? You will be different and you don't have to think like the others, right? So I think this is something that I saw today that, don't compare yourself. This is not, we're not here to compare to others, but
I
really,
would say on the comparison, yeah, sorry, like the comparison one is tricky.
mhm,
When I get students, anyone saying like, "Hey, how can I do it better?" You don't want to do the comparison. And I think it's just to remember, like, comparing. Are you doing the right comparisons? Is
yeah,
the person in the right place? And one thing I dealt like on the comparison aspect,
hmm,
when I see people in Canada or North America, right? Hey, this 40-year-old person is doing all of this successful thing. This 60-year-old person now has his
yeah,
$1 million house. And
hmm,
then the comparison for me is that person who has that house or that career, they were born here, right?
hmm,
Their parents were born here. Their great great parents were born here.
yeah,
But then someone who just moved in, let's say 6 months ago, that's not the right comparison. And I
right,
think we forget, like, it's not just the age, it's also the opportunities we get, the way we were brought up. We
right,
forget about all those things that led us to be successful,
right,
right? Like, I'm pretty sure if we were back in South Asia, life would be different because then we have different metrics of success.
right,
Population's way bigger. Here, all of a sudden, the population drastically reduces to like a quarter of the population of South Asia, and
hmm,
then it's a different way to compare.
right, right,
So I
yeah,
think it's not the compare, it's like comparing, but also making sure you're looking at the right trace to be compared, not
exactly,
just the overall big picture.
right, exactly. And yeah, I mean, honestly, and it also comes back to the definition of success because someone thinks, okay, they have a house and $1 million is successful. But for someone like me, of course, just serving people is my, successful. You're thriving. So everyone has a different definition of success. So comparing yourself to the right people who have a similar mission, similar definition is totally fine. But at the same time, rather than comparing, like you said, collaborate with them, right? Learn from them. And when you learn from, get inspired, right? So you don't have to like, this is not about copying or anything, but really just be inspired. That's what I do, right? I feel inspired by people and they've been inspired by me. And that's how we grow together, right? And speaking of collaboration, that's a really good value that true leaders have. But really know, again, I keep saying this, know your why. And the fact that everyone has a different definition of success. And
Yep.
everyone has their journey. Their journeys are so different.
Hmm.
Coming back from like, yes, so my parents were immigrants. I was born and raised here. But I see that like a lot of people have come straight from, South Asia and India. It's very different. But by looking at like I'm different, I'm better. It's not that. They have something we don't, and vice versa. Let's try to see how we can work together, right? So coming from that mindset really takes you far. Amazing. So this is a great conversation. It's pumping me up. So, okay, so let's go into the rapid fire round. So let me see. Okay. Morning or evening? When do you do your best strategy work?
Mornings.
Me too, honestly. It just keeps
It's
me.
the morning. For me, I'm an early bird. It's the
Yeah.
morning. So I think it goes on like a daily habit is like I'll get up, I'll call my mom. I do call my mom almost on a daily basis, or I'll
Yes.
call one of my siblings with that first connection. Like that's a daily habit. But
Nice.
then you slept on problems. You wake up, you go for a
Mhm.
workout, your brain, the subconscious is working on the problem. So for me, when you've gone through the nap, you wake up, you do a workout, then your
Right.
mind is fresh with new ideas. And
Exactly.
then I avoid the evening because then a lot of things happen during the day that start influencing your mood and your decisions towards the evening, which
Yeah.
doesn't give your brain to think.
Yeah. I do agree with that. Mornings, I do the meditation, like you said, calling your mom's amazing. That's so nice. The fact that you value family, just connecting with someone you love in the morning and then getting into work, or if that's a meditation or resting last at night, getting up. And I think someone told me about the 5 a.m. club. There's like a book. So I'm going to check that out. But just having these small habits every day makes a huge difference. So,
I also want to say is like not about waking up early because I have a lot of friends and people who complain like, hey, I can't wake up early. It's just
mhm,
about waking up at the same time, but having things that you do consistently,
right,
right? So if you wake up
right,
at 7, then what do you do when you do in the first half an hour? How are you
right.
getting ready for the rest of the day? And some of my friends, they wake up early because they need that me time
Yeah,
before the rest of the world wakes up. For me, I
yeah.
should get into the office at 7, be the first ones in, check
Hmm.
all my emails, go up, and I should be smoking at that time, go up to the rooftop to drink my chai and have my cigarette. But then
Hmm.
my HR guy would come in because he knew I would already be there. And then the day would start. So it was like, go in, get my coffee, read my emails, go up to the rooftop, look at the mountains.
Nice.
My HR guys come up, we have a quick chat on what's been happening, any issues. And then after like an hour, everyone else starts showing up.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
those are those kind of things like you got to choose your own daily habit based on your own body rather than someone
Right.
telling you like this is what you should do because we are
Yes.
all different.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, going back to do what works for you. Like I have to have a creative, like I think a lot of women do, but this creative piece of time, just like a me time for yourself, and then go into work for strategy. So I kind of block creative time and strategy time so that for, like you said, a routine, some routine that would work for you. Absolutely. And another one, if your leadership philosophy were a book title, what would it be?
So it would be laugh and carry on.
Ooh, that's nice. Laugh and carry on. If you are going to write a book, I would definitely read this. So let me know.
Because I think everything I go is always when I remember my granddad's or everyone I go, it's like I have a lot of friends who we trauma bonded because of shitty
Yeah.
managers, because of toxic cultures.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
the only thing is like we would make those jokes. It was like humor in the truth. You made it, we laughed, and like shit, what do you have to do? Is like we gotta get back to work. And that's a carry on, right? Like humor isn't everywhere, but if you're having fun and that's through laughter, you just keep going because then carrying on is a consistency, right? It's a persistent, like
Yeah.
you want to still get up and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And yeah, and leaders, I mean, like laughter is really medicine, right? That itself. We think like, why would some people are just so serious these days, and especially in corporate, but just having that laughter and, like you said, bringing in that humor makes a
I
difference.
I remember this one, and I have this memory because we mentioned laughter and leaders. There's this time I was a marketing manager. I was in a remote base in Pakistan. It was always like I said, laughter with them. We always laugh. People come in. There would be jokes, right? Even when life was bad, like I needed to get that because that was the best way to release the dopamine. I
Yeah.
had this one boss from Egypt come in, and he was a country manager, my boss's boss, right?
Mhm.
He comes in and then he's walking in after getting a really bad day from the clients, right? The clients have been telling him off for whatever reasons, nothing because of me. But then he comes back and he sees all these people happy, like
Mhm.
laughing, right? Like enjoying themselves. He goes like, this is work. Then he went and complained. And then it filtered down saying like, yeah, he didn't enjoy that. He didn't enjoy coming back to a place where it was like 5 o'clock, people are smiling and laughing and like, and not working. And I was,
Mhm.
my first thing was like, but it was five. It's
Right.
like, I get paid 9 to 5. Like, I'll put in the extra hours, but like, what do I do? So it always comes to that point. Like, and this is still brought to me after like 15 years. I have friends who keep reminding me of this story
Right.
whenever I
Right.
see them, right? And they're spread across the globe.
Wow.
But there have been leaders who want that strict business culture. You come
Right.
in, I pay for 8 hours, but you give me work for 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I give you an email, I'm top priority.
Yeah. It just, I mean, for them, it works. They're getting business, but for the team members, they're not happy, right? And if they're not happy and your team's not happy, it affects the whole entire business and the company, right? So, I mean, there are different types of leaders who are focused on the business, but they're also leaders like us who are more people oriented, right? So, yeah, there's no right or wrong, but at the same time, what really is sustainable and thrive, you want a thriving business or company, is someone who balances the two. Yes, there is this aspect of serious when it needs to be, but there's also time when like we can just chill and relax and enjoy and be in the present moment, right? Not everything
Yeah.
has to be taken so seriously.
And that's why like with Google and all those guys on the West Coast, it's you have these rooms, right? Like you'll get arcades, you guys enjoy yourself. You
Hmm.
need that. But then
Yeah.
you also need to know when you lock in.
Right. Yes. And honestly, I lived in the East Coast my whole life, and it's so hustle, bustle, seriousness. And then I have family who lives in the West Coast, and I've heard stories. Like, I've talked to so many people, and they're like, hey, we just are chill, So I was like, we can combine the two kind of cultures here. So I'm trying to move to the other side. But yes, no, having the balance, as mentioned, is what's going to keep everyone in place and all the business thriving. And it's for the long term, right? So amazing. And what's next for part of that sense? Anything coming up, like initiatives, programs?
Oh, I'm working on a couple of series, webinar, like a workshop series to try to get businesses to understand how to scale. Because again,
Hmm.
it goes to that framework of, well, not the framework, but like my view in establishing culture, having frameworks and doing the right risk analysis, and then
Hmm.
also putting them into business fundamentals. So I've been
Right,
working on this course on this, trying to get this up and running through Chamber of Commerce and a couple of associations. If you have a business which is doing well, let's say making $10 million per year revenue, great. If you want to go to the next level, do
right.
you have the business plan? Have you done the market research? Do you understand the beat or the rhythm of your company?
Yes.
What kind of frameworks you put in? Because when you start scaling, more people come in and people lose. Yeah,
Right,
sorry, more people come in and people lose focus, right? The culture evolves. So what I'm
right,
trying to do nowadays is working with small businesses to create this workshop to them to understand like, hey, everyone can scale. So how do you do it? Through the culture framework and the risk analysis, having an entire workshop on where they work through the problems, a lot of whiteboarding. I'm talking to a couple of people regarding mental wellness coaching
hmm
and working on another startup where we remove and destroy forever chemicals. And
wow,
I'm kind of looking for more work. I enjoy teaching, but I'm looking to impact more
right,
businesses that are looking to scale, go international. So if you know anyone who is interested in growing their business and going into new markets, going international, I would love to simply have a conversation because those are
right,
stories that I don't know. I would love
right.
to learn about.
I'm learning those as well. That's amazing. And I love you talked about the whiteboarding because it's very similar. Because I love whiteboarding, honestly. Just that visual piece, podcast conversations, workshops. So I love how you're kind of integrating that into your work because I think people I've talked to, they kind of just hesitate doing that, but that's where you really shine, right? You make people feel seen and heard. I like I do it in the podcast, you do it through workshops. That's how you really know someone, right? And not just because I know some people do it with like, pressure conversations or just writing a lot. But when I don't know if they actually feel seen, but when these kind of like visual whiteboarding sessions are really truly helpful. So congrats to you. I hope it goes really well. So and
Thank you.
yes, yeah, of course. And Hassan, what I appreciate most about this conversation is the clarity you bring to something many leaders feel but don't always articulate, right? So growth doesn't break companies. Misalignment does. So culture without structure creates chaos, and structure without culture creates rigidity. Right. But when the two work together, scale becomes sustainable. So for everyone listening, here's the question to sit with. Is your culture designed or assumed? Are your systems protecting your people or exhausting them? Right? Because scaling responsibly isn't about adding complexity, it's about strengthening foundation. Right? So when identity, culture, and systems are aligned, growth feels grounded and not frantic. So, Hassan, thank you for bringing both depth and humor and fun to this conversation to a topic that shapes the future of how we build. And to everyone listening, if this episode resonated, share it with the founder, operator, or leadership team that's scaling right now. And connect with Hassan Pardawalla on his LinkedIn. So, because the future of resilient companies won't be built by accident, it'll be built by design. So, see you next for the next episode this evening.